In Season 2, Episode 10 of Westworld, we follow Dolores and Bernard enter a place called The Forge. And today, I'm going to help add some clarity as to what The Forge exactly is, as well as go into more detail on what it contains, while also giving a quick recap of The Forge's appearance in Season 2. When William was pitching Westworld to Delos, he explains that Westworld is a great place to see people for who they really are, a place where no one is watching or judging, where you can be whatever you want to be, thus revealing your true self. This was originally pitched as a better way to understand the clients, using it as a means to grow and expand their business, as they would know exactly what their consumers want. Then Delos was falling ill from an unknown sickness, but he was coughing in the middle of his sentence, and if I know anything about the language of cinema, that slight cough heavily implies that he was dying from a severe sickness and didn't have much time left. So Delos and William secretly began work on a project to duplicate the park guests from the information they received on them, with subject number 1 being Delos himself. Their overall goal was to duplicate their consciousness and put their newly copied mind into a host body. However, the park records alone weren't enough to capture the full human being, so they put scanners in the custom-tailored hats the guests would wear. During this, they could track the brain activity of a guest during their experience at the park, scanning their entire brain and figuring out who they really are, starting with the first choice of the hat, black or white. The Delos Corporation would then save all of this data and store it in a place called The Forge. When Dolores and Bernard entered The Forge, they are in a computer simulation exactly like the Cradle, except this simulation is different, as it's projecting the various memories from James Delos and other characters, as we can spot scenes from Season 1 get reenacted behind them as they're walking through the hallway, as well as witness Delos' memories come to life. They encounter the system as it takes the form of Logan, and what we learn from their scenes together is that the Forge did figure out the humans. The system shows them a memory of James Delos' last conversation with his son, where James Delos turns away Logan. This moment defined James Delos' life. It's mentioned that after a million different pathways, James always ended up at that moment with Logan. Bernard questions us, asking, "You're saying the humans don't change at all?" And the answer to that was, the best they can do is act according to their code. And the system later specifies that the humans couldn't be put into the hosts, not because the designs were too simple, but because they were making the humans more complicated than they actually were. What made the project successful was realizing that humans could be broken down into brief algorithms that could fit into a book of a few thousand pages, which adds some clarity as to why the system took the form of Logan. Yes, it was so Dolores would recognize him as not being a park guest, so she would know that it's not just a memory, but the system talking to her. But the main reason was because Logan was the moment that led to the discovery of the simplicity of the human mind. James Delos picking the same path a million times in his conversation with Logan at the pool was key to the Forge's understanding of the predictability of humans. And Dolores ends up reading these books contained within the library, reading each of the individual park guests, dissecting the human psyche as a way of understanding every park guest to understand humanity and use their predictable nature as a weapon against them. The system tells Bernard that he has been instructed by Bernard himself on numerous accounts to give the hosts everything they need. This was most likely Ford communicating through Bernard in the past. And speaking of Ford's involvement, it's very interesting that the simulation within the Forge makes the human codes look exactly like the music sheets we see used in the pianos in the show. We see these sheets in the intro and throughout key moments in the series. Before Ford's death, he even mentioned that Mozart, Beethoven, and Chopin never died. They simply became music, early on hinting at the way the guests have been written within the Forge, a way for them to live forever as music. What's great about the human's code being written into music is that it explains why we see Ford on the piano so much in the series. He understands the music as much as he understands the guests. He must have read the guests' files the same way Dolores did, explaining why Ford always had the upper hand and seemed to be a step ahead of everyone, giving him the opportunity to create a path for the Man in Black, as well as the other real-life narratives we see for other characters. Dolores neglected to read Delos' book, and her reason for not doing so was because Delos was dead at the time, and this could end up being a big mistake for Dolores. The Forge, along with the entire project of Westworld, was revolving around James Delos. Different versions of him have been manufactured and put into hosts. In Westworld, no one can really be permanently dead. A more complex version of Delos Delos could make a return, a version that did survive in the real world, and she could have understood everything about him in that moment, but chose not to. As Dolores and Bernard walk through the Forge, we see a memory of Delos as he is asked his primary drive. Delos replies with, "My son." The system claimed that the humans just follow their code. The Man in Black was always wanting the humans to be different from the hosts, trying to find the differences between the hosts and himself. Yet what we find out is that the humans can be written down into simple algorithms. They are predictable and can't change. They just follow the code given to them. William comes back to the Forge in the after credit scene of episode 10, as he has probably gone the same path an endless amount of times. In the end, the system revealed that the humans are the ones that can't change. Contrast that with the hosts that could change his core drive, as well as every other host who changed their narrative. The Forge proves that the hosts end up being more complex than the humans, as humans in a sense have no free will, as they are restricted to their own code that they can't change, making the hosts like Bernard and Dolores more free than any human will be. The Forge also contained the Valley Beyond. The Valley Beyond was part of a narrative developed by Ford. Ford made a virtual door that only the hosts could see, as they were connected through the mesh network. The door led to a simulated world, a boundless world that started with a literal valley referred to as Eden or Glory. By crossing through the virtual door, the host's consciousness would then be uploaded into the Valley Beyond, as their host bodies would be wiped clean, explaining why they referred to some of the dead host bodies as virgins earlier in the season, as their minds were completely erased when entering the door. The Valley Beyond was then deleted from the Forge by Dolores, but was then uploaded to a satellite outside the park, meaning everyone that we've seen enter the door has a good chance of coming back into the real world, as their consciousness still exists in the Valley Beyond. And that was my recap of The Forge and its purpose in Season 2 of Westworld. Hopefully that added some clarity to Episode 10 and the rest of the season. And if you guys learned something today and love everything sci-fi, please subscribe to support this channel. And I will see you guys in my next Westworld Season 2 explanation video.